brought this episode up was I went out online and I put kind of a survey out to my group of fans out there who follow me and asked, what are your questions? What do you want to know? Because every episode we have goals of answering a specific question, as well as offering some tools for everybody to learn how to do kind of their own research and how to think critically when we're looking at all of this massive mounds of information. Okay, so how did the question came up was I put out this survey, and I would say at least 30 people came back and said, why would anybody allow their kids near him after his arrest? That we have lots of documentation that lots of people allowed their kids with them, invited him to their parties, allowed
Epstein himself, correct?
Epstein himself. That
I think the same question would be good pointed towards the president. Why would anybody let their kid near?
Oh, absolutely, and that's a whole other ball of wax.
So we just want to be clarified that we're talking about people.
We are definitely talking about Epstein particularly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Absolutely, and there are a few reasons why, but one of the big big thing that I want to explain overarching, and then I have some little subtext in there, is that in the elite class, most of them aren't even actually raising their children.
Well, I mean,
they are
that much money.
They have nannies and they have boarding school. And if you don't send your kid to boarding school, you're considered lower class. It's the thing that you do. So one of the things that we know is that the elite don't bond with their children the same way that your average person does, because part of how we do that bonding is through doing the work, through changing the diapers, through being with them during their sicknesses, through the joys and the bad things. And so that's also how you develop your relationship with one another. And so a lot of times in these elite classes, that never forms. And we can even see it if you look at some of the Woody Allen emails, and Katie's a bigger expert on that than I am, but I can even remember Sun-Yi, did I say that correctly? Sun-Yi, yeah. That she even says, I don't even like my kids. I don't, like whatever. And Sun-Yi was a child he molested and eventually married, that they had adopted and originally been his daughter, and
the partner of her mother.
Okay, that. Yeah. So thank you, Katie. Yeah. But along those lines, again, she allowed him to continue to go on and play with Jeffrey.
Right.
Another part that we see in this culture also is that in the elite world, it's a very different form of goal setting than what we have. For the average person who isn't FU wealthy, what we're doing is we're trying to maintain our bills, plan our retirement, we're raising our kids. Our very survival depends on day by day. And those are the things we're kind of focused on, and the things that we are constantly getting our dopamine, and accomplishments and, our range of emotions are all set on this tight network of family and community and survival. Well, once you no longer need to worry about survival, your sympathetic nervous system gets a little bit flicky and confused, because it's still
Is that the professional word for it?
Flicky? That is flicky and confused. Yes, right. Absolutely.
Dr. Evans said so.
Dr. Evans said so. Oh, I just thought, Katie, right now we're a paradox. Sorry. So going back to the I know, isn't that bad? So once you don't have to worry about that, your sympathetic nervous system that is still hardwired into survival, it still thinks that stress is a dinosaur eating our face, then longs for something. It gets bored. It needs something. And so rather than basic survival, that need for hunting, that's very instinctual for us, then goes to who can have the best of the best. And so once you hit that $100 million mark in that
$1
world,
trillion mark.
Exactly. Once you hit that stage and you no longer have to worry about survival, now it's about competing with the others, right? The other, and so what does that look like? That looks like more money, bigger yachts, more women, more. And I've spent many years working in this world a little bit, and I watched it over and over again, that they avoid peace. They almost don't want it. The concept of just hanging out in their yachts all day long without having some stimulation is like torture for them.
That's why they become trolls on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
For the rise.
Exactly.
The rise out of the
They need more. They need more. And it becomes almost an addictive situation.
Right. We talked about that after the Charlie Kirk death.
Absolutely. The next stage that kind of happens is that mindset then is laid upon the children, and their children become extensions of them. And so therefore their children's success and the way their children look in this world is what becomes this priority thing for them, to be the best, to look the best. They're not content with survival at any rate. There's a couple of other very significant pieces that we have to also mention. And one of those is that loyalty is considered the top value system. And what loyalty means to them is different than us. Loyalty for them is you're willing to cut your own arm off and maybe sacrifice your children in order to protect them. And you see this with staff, you see this with friendship, so on and so forth. And so one of the things that's really essential to understand is that the elite value system is entirely different than ours based upon what their needs are.
Right.
And so for them, exclusivity is the greatest goal. The more exclusive, the better. So I don't know if you've seen the movie The Menu.
Oh, I saw a trailer. I didn't get to watch the movie.
You need to see it. It's a fantastic
I'm not
film.
I'm not a horror person personally, but
It's not really horror. It's more of a
psychological thriller.
it's
Okay,
a
I'll try it
psychological
because,
it's a psychological thriller, and it's
I'll yell at you if I
really
get scared.
no, it's really about class war.
Right, it's
Really?
classism.
And the difference between them and us, because they are not like us.
No.
So one of the things that the menu is based on this restaurant that's at this exclusive island that has like this amazing famous chef, and you go and there's only certain people that can come to this event, and you have to be invited, and it costs you $1 gazillion and your firstborn child and the whole 9 yards. And that's what they thrive on. It's not enough to have a private jet. You have to have the private jet.
The super yacht.
The
island,
super. In fact, you want the items that your friends want to come over and ask to borrow.
Yeah, that.
And so it's the same with homes. Oh, one beautiful, massive home isn't enough. I want to go and collect, so then I can show off by letting my friends go and stay at my various little spots. So because of the exclusivity piece, circling back, I'm not going to be accused of doing the weave. Circling back is that the further you are away from something, we know you can't attach to it. If you can't attach to it, you can't understand it. So one of the reasons why we never need a lawmaker that's wealthy and was raised in wealth is because they will never, no matter what they do, outside of becoming poor and living poor for a period of time, will they ever be able to even empathize? And so because of that piece,
I feel like it goes both ways. Sorry to interrupt. It goes both ways. We can't empathize with people in Congress because they're $127,000 salaries. And they're like, what? We can't trade stocks? I'm going to be broke.
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that.
The anti-empathy goes both ways. I can't empathize with the rich. I'm like, you have everything. I don't feel sorry for you at all.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because there is an assumption by those of us that are not filthy rich, that the rich never feel pain.
Oh, they feel pain, and it's fucking hilarious.
They have no grit, very little grit.
Yeah,
And
well, this is what, can I just
please, I'm waiting, pop in.
That we talked about in our group, and it's something that I've thought about a lot, in terms of the question of whether or not Epstein committed suicide. Right?
That's been a hot topic for years. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember in the notes of the therapist that he saw after, a first suicide attempt, and I think maybe earlier, but like in the various medical records and in the investigation records that are in the files, he talks about being a coward, right? Like that he can't suffer. Now, he's someone who grew up in a lower middle class environment, right? He did not grow up wealthy. He did not grow up in the milieu of the billionaires that, at least, kind of in a legendary way were his only clients, right? He made a point of saying, I will only manage the money of someone whose net worth is $1 billion or higher, right? The kind of very interesting. We can think about reasons why, in the ways that you're talking about, Patty, like why would he have targeted that particular group, right? Why would that have been the hunting ground for Jeffrey Epstein, for reasons financial, but also not just financial? But I was thinking about this bad tooth that he had.
The snaggletooth.
The snaggletooth.
Snaggletooth
That we first discovered because it was a key detail mentioned in one of the FBI 302 interviews that mentioned Donald Trump, in which a woman who, as a teenager, lived on Hilton Head Island and said that she had been assaulted by both Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump as a teen. And there was a lot of questions about whether or not this was, how credible or how authentic these documents were and her testimony. And she describes Epstein as having a snaggletooth. And I remember when we were trying to hunt down pictures of the snaggletooth, I had a first thought, and I know that others among the sleuths had the thought, well, this man had so much money and he's with all of these wealthy people where, everybody's getting the veneers, having good teeth, right? Having like perfectly straight teeth, white teeth that aren't even your own anymore.
Right. He had the money to fix it.
Class marker. And he certainly had the money because he was constantly spending money to go have, teenagers and, women in their 20s get their teeth fixed. We see dental appointments all over the emails and various records in the files. And the guy didn't fix his tooth. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein, up until, as late as the 2019 interview he was doing with Steve Bannon that's recorded, he's got a big old funky snaggletooth sticking out of his mouth. He had a really funky tooth that he hid with a closed smile and pictures.
Say again?
Like his identifying mark, like a personality trait.
It makes me wonder, is this like a hangover from his lower middle class upbringing, or is it this kind of inability to suffer, right? Like he was scared. He didn't want to undergo whatever procedure would have been necessary to do that.
And to be clear, that's your speculation.
That's entirely my speculation, but it was
we want to be clear where we differentiate between facts and speculation.
Yeah, well, it defied expectations, right? We were thinking when we went looking for photos of him with this tooth based on the 302 interview, I know that I and others said there's no way that we're going to find pictures of Epstein in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s.
Absolutely not.
Because certainly he would have fixed it, but he didn't, right? What we see in photographs and videos from those later years is that he didn't fix the tooth.
Right.
And it is interesting then to enter into the realm of speculation as to why we don't have answers to that clearly, or I haven't found any so far.
Speculation's fine as long as we disclose where the facts end.
Although I will note just one last thing on the dental topic along these same lines is that you do see in the scheduling emails from Leslie Groff, every time Jeffrey Epstein himself has a dental appointment, there's a note to make sure that his iPod is ready and fully charged. so that he's going to be able to put on headphones, right? So there's a note every time that he needs to take a fully charged iPod with him.
Totally forgot the iPods existed.
It's really funny, and this is speculation for me, but this kind of like dental phobia is one of the reasons why I think one of his girls decided to go to dental school. I think it was his idea, because I think he thought there might be a way to make it more comfortable if he was
a trauma kink or something.
No, I think that he needed control. That was his biggest fetish.
Exposure
was
therapy.
Control. Mm-hmm. And so less about exposure therapy and more of, if she hurts me, I'm going to hurt her back.
Right. And he would have the ability to
He controls, yes, as the dentist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And just financially controlling a dentist, like he did the gynecologist and the psychiatrist and all of these other allied workers, right? I think his phobia for this ran so deep. And I would love to know the root behind it, that is why he needed this extra step for it. At least that's my speculation on it.
That's really interesting. Well, can I ask what you make, Patty, of the fact that Epstein did come from this lower middle class background, and if we are to believe the account of this article, this piece that was published in May in Rolling Stone by a writer named Gabrielle Glancy, right? The title of this article is "I Grew Up with Jeffrey Epstein. Our Neighborhood Held Dark Secrets, a Remembrance of Seagate, Brooklyn in the 1960s. And there, Gabrielle Glancy, who grew up on the same street, she says, during the same time period as Jeffrey Epstein, said that she and other children she knew were being sexually abused by family members, and that it was extremely common. Her understanding is that it was extremely common in their neighborhood and in their milieu. And this was a gated neighborhood at the end of Coney Island, but not wealthy, right? I mean, really not
middle class.
Yeah, lower middle class even. As I think
there's a borough of Staten Island that has a similar story. Just FYI.
Yeah, and it seems interesting to reflect on how the kind of protection or concealment of those kinds of very harmful criminal behaviors, sort of what the mechanism is, psychologically and socially, that allows that to flourish in a place like Seagate, as opposed to among the Upper East Side elites, for example.
So a couple of things. I want to first mention that remember that children are considered a property and a tool, just like all other people in the elite class. There's a reason why I'm mentioning this that I'll turn back to later. Just think of it like the gun in Act 1. Okay.
Right.
First and foremost, let me just say it is more traumatic to be poor and become rich than it is to have wealth, in the sense of changing your ability to empathize. And let me explain why. Because the poor person who grows up poor and then becomes rich knows how bad and how hard it is. And so because of that, their need to protect that status will be even higher, and they are more likely to commit crimes and do things outside of their standard value system. And in fact, their whole value system changes. There's a couple things that happen. People that are new to money, people that marry into money, who earn money as an adult versus having grown up with it. A couple of things happen. First, they go into a new to money frenzy that they get. That is sort of like, rah! This is why so many lottery members end up blowing their money, where they're like, oh my gosh, I never have to worry.
Cyber criminals too.
Absolutely. You end up just kind of blowing this thing. And it's an interesting position to be in because the elite that are old money won't accept you.
Right. And old money is different.
And yet you don't ever feel like you can come back to this place. Like if we were putting it on a scale, like from to the bottom and be poor again, although we do see that happen.
It sucks down here.
Absolutely. There was a clever movie with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd in the 80s, probably my favorite Christmas movie, called Trading Places. And unsure if anybody's ever seen it. If you hadn't, you must. To me, it is my favorite Eddie Murphy movie of all time. And it's where, let's see, Dan Aykroyd was a rich guy working for what seems to be like, I don't know, the Rothfelds, the Gettys, the Hearst, whoever, some rich old money family. And he runs into Eddie Murphy, who's like this homeless kind of street guy in Philadelphia. And they have an interaction. And the two brothers, wait a minute, maybe it's the Lehman Brothers they're supposed to be. I forget who they're supposed to be a mockery of.
Because they're Wall Street guys.
Yeah, they're Wall Street guys, right. And so they decide to place a bet for $1 to humiliate Dan Aykroyd and then try to bring Eddie Murphy in to see if he could be successful in that world for a short period of time, right? And so, long story short, without spoilers, one of the things that Eddie Murphy says in there that is probably the smartest, most brilliant thing that people need to see is he said, the greatest fear of rich people is becoming poor people. Yeah. And I'm going to say yes. There is no greater fear for these guys. And so if you think about it, okay, their version of survival is different than ours. It isn't just, I'm going to wake up on this side of the grass. It's, I must be on this side of the grass and own everything around the grass, or else that is considered not living. That's their fear. And let me just add, from a cultural standpoint, socially, okay, one of the reasons we've had this backlash of racism and misogyny is because the traditional white male went from being like these rich folks, and then when civil rights happened in the Me Too movement, all of a sudden these privileges like raping children and raping employees and calling people the N-word and getting to choose, all of these things actually made them feel poorer and less privileged because it took their exclusivity away. For example, the CIA only under Dulles only recruited from the elite class.
All right.
So, with this being said, what creates these sociological teams, the number one motivator of all, if you ever learn anything from me, the number one motivator of all human behavior, all of it, is a sense of belonging to the group, whether the group is 1, 2, or more. And so most of the time when you have these sort of what's the word I'm looking for in English?
Say it in German.
When you have a fetish, a kink, something that's considered to be undesirable by the mainstream, right? When you are feeling isolated, a taboo, and you're feeling isolated, the minute that you find somebody in your world that also has that, you have a bond. I mean, Pride is a beautiful example of that. I don't know about you. I'm part of the Rainbow Mafia. And anytime I meet another person that's a member of the Rainbow Mafia, to me, I feel a real connection to them. And so they have the same
Pride, it's chill.
Yeah. It's you just feel free because there are others around you. I don't know how many times I say to Katie, I thank you because you make me feel sane, because I send her things all the time like, am I crazy here? Am I weird here?
And I say, no.
Okay, good.
Because I feel we're running a little short on Katie's time, so let's give her a chance to
so
recite some of the documents she has memorized.
Okay.
Well, let me just bring up in relation to this. I think there's something really interesting. Something I've been looking at recently is this phrase that Epstein uses to a very select group of men. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this does not imply necessarily any criminal behavior or other wrongdoing on the part of these people. But there are emails that you can find that Epstein sends to other men, only to other men, a handful of them, I think there are maybe 10 other men, where he introduces one man to another. Either they're both copied on the email or he's writing to someone about someone else and he says, he's one of us. He's one of us. And I will tell you, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what that one of us means.
Do we think it's elite class of...
I think it's not just elite class, because he's emailing with a lot of other people who are elite, to whom he doesn't say this. And I do think it's about something sexual, mainly. And something sexual that is perceived to be, deviant or somehow outside the norm, or maybe it's something that was once acceptable and is no longer acceptable. But the one of us, it's a very strong thing. I'm just thinking of what you just said.
They say that in horror movies too.
In the kink community, if we're talking about somebody to someone else, that's like, we often say their lifestyle too.
Yeah.
Or they're one of us.
To identify, we got the tisms, we got they're part of the community, or they're... they're a weeb. I think that's
exactly.
Now, but
exactly.
It didn't used to be. So,
but yeah, no. So going back to what Katie is saying, is it's kind of ringing through. How do these tend to circulate in this way, and these communities happen? Because the minute you find one, we start attaching, and then they become this kind of cult.
You drag them into your group, and you're like us.
No, you. They're like. Atoms. They're like ions in chemistry. They will absolutely, and you'll have a tendency to kind of see them run a little bit in packs. In the church, often they know one another if they're of this particular persuasion, and they protect one another because, quite frankly, they have to.
Let's not touch that trauma bucket.
They have to.
The powerful church group is a separate podcast.
Oh yeah, that's a whole thing. Oh yeah, it's a whole podcast.
It's a whole podcast.
But so that's that need to belong to the group, and so going back to Katie's, subject at hand, we will see pockets like this all over the country all the time, because we will find the people that are like our own because of our need to belong to the group.
Humans have an innate need for community. That's how we've survived for the entire human history.
Exactly.
If you were ostracized from the group, that was almost a death sentence in the early days.
Still is.
There's incels. They have their own little Reddit groups, so they find each other by being outcast together. So
exactly.
It all loops back. But
go ahead, Katie.
Well, I was going to say, something else, a slightly different topic, but about the question of protection and kind of strategies for reproducing the elite class without disturbing it, even at the cost of one's own children, even at the cost of what may have been a person's values at some point in their life previously.
It changes you. It does change you.
Well, I keep thinking about so many of the survivors when they talk about, and I think we've even seen this in the House Oversight depositions. Sarah Kellen, I think, even spoke to this. I would need to go back and check that, though. When they say, did people know? Did anyone ever see you? Did anyone know what Jeffrey Epstein was doing to you? Did they know about the abuse? And people would say, well, there are naked photos of me all over the house, right? Or as soon as you walk into his house, anyone who walked into the house would have seen photos of not only naked adult women, but also
naked children,
naked, underage, like teenage girls, the age of a lot of the survivors that we know about, and also naked children, right? Photographs and paintings of naked children. And there's this one image that I think I've talked about it with you guys before, this image that I just find so haunting, this giant blown up, I'll pull it up. I have the document open just a second ago that has the dimensions, because it was you can see it's the instructions for creating the blown up version of the image.
Was that the one above the kitchen?
The kitchen, yes. The picture of the baby above
the weird picture in like the pure white kitchen, which made people believe that there was ritualistic cannibalism going on.
Well, no,
not the chicken one.
No, not the chicken.
No, in the kitchen.
This was a different conspiracy theory. I believe me and Katie covered
it. Okay.
That because he had weird baby pictures and like a meticulously clean kitchen, people connected those dots for reasons unbeknownst to me.
That's so interesting.
But as we sit now, there is no evidence of ritualistic cannibalism.
That is right.
And yes. we want to stick to.
Although we have a lot of pictures of him biting butts. Outside of that, we just had this conversation earlier.
You're in the kink community. You bite people.
Yeah, it's just part of what you do.
You should just bite. Biting's fun. Consensual biting is fun.
Consensual biting.
Consensual biting, great. What Epstein had was this very large format, like multiple feet by feet photo of a baby. And then one of the documents that I just pulled up indicated or suggested, the caption suggested that it was a photo taken at 71st Street. That's his Upper East Side townhouse. In the sink there's a baby holding what looks like a baby toy or rattle, but is extremely phallic, right? It looks like, that has a kind of big round shape at the bottom, right? And then
they did that on purpose.
Yes, it seems like it's clearly, given everything else we know about Jeffrey Epstein, his use of sex toys in the abuse.
Ruined a lot of sex toys for a lot of people.
Yeah, the toys were a really big part of his abuse, right? They were not being used consensually.
But just the bad way to use them.
Yeah, it's the really bad way to use them. And here is an infant, right? I mean, this is a baby you can't, it's a redacted face, but a naked baby in a sink holding this big, it's bright red object, which babies don't have toys like that, but this is like a 6-month-old baby. Right. And this is in the only image or piece of art in this otherwise totally white
blank wall,
right over where people are going to walk in and have, their breakfast or lunch.
It's weird. It's definitely weird.
And it's not the only instance of this. There were really large format, naked or otherwise suggestive photos of children, one child all over and prominently displayed, like in his dining room where he was inviting heads of state and billionaires and all kinds of people. What do they think this is? This is a man who not only does not have children, he's by the point these photos are being displayed and that we can see them in the files, he's a registered level 3 sex offender.
So this was after the first arrest and the conviction.
Yes.
And then people were still coming over, knowing what he was convicted of, and seeing these photos and not saying anything.
And letting their kids hang out with him and let him touch them.
That too, yes.
But this brings me back to the gun in Act 1, where they don't. Pedophilia and incest are considered norm in elite culture and has been for centuries. Look at royal family, which used to be the only elite culture were the royals, right? They were always marrying each other's brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever, and the marriages were set up for whatnot, and sex was just another thing. Children were often arranged marriages. I mean, children have been tools for the elite.
Right, keep the bloodline pure and all that jazz. Or marry you off to the rich family for their money to make our family more powerful. You see it in movies all the time.
So why do they allow this harm to happen? Because for them it's acceptable and okay.
Because the children are objects.
Yeah, they're theirs.
Fools,
Yeah, they don't matter. They don't matter to them except for what they can do for them and what they can do. So,
which is haunting on its own. That's a hard subject right there.
But that's the thing is, in our culture, our values are entirely different. If you make less than $10 million, you have a total different balance of value system than you do once you hit above that level.
Well, and it's interesting. That's in a way that is also what Epstein is documented as having said about why his target clients were, $1 billion and over. I mean, a slightly different version, but he would say, once you get past a certain threshold, money becomes a very different thing, right? And it sort of stops working for you and actually starts generating an entirely new set of problems for you. It becomes a burden, and people at that level of net worth just have different needs, and you need people with a different skill set to be able to deal with that money for you. And so in a way, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but it maps, right?
But it is.
Sense that there's a way in which, like, I don't know, something shifts when you hit a certain level of wealth or status.
Had Ivanka been born to a poor family, her trauma and child may have just been surrounded about trying to get enough food to eat. But because she was born in a wealthy family, and I don't know if anybody has ever seen that interview of her taking people for a tour of her childhood bedroom. It is very obvious, very obvious that there are some bad memories for her surrounding that.
And then she was signed as a model at Elite when she was 15 years old.
Was it 15? I thought she was 13. Was it 15?
She was 15. She was 15. Yeah, when she was signed. And the president of Elite, not John Casablancas, but the woman who was running Elite out of New York, said that she had first spotted her when she was 9 years old, sitting on her father's lap in 1991 when he was judging the Elite Look of the Year. That's
contest. The one where she's wearing the gold dress, with the gold handbag that I think I remember. He's squeezing her hand in a way that all of us that looked at it went, "Oh, that's scary." So
I think that's all the time Katie has for us.
That is all the time.
I'm sorry.
I believe you.
It's fantastic that you came on.
Thank you so much. I'll see you in a little bit.
So happy to be here.
Always use your encyclopedic knowledge.
I know she is. She's like a savant.
Bye, guys.
All right, see you later,
Bye,
guys.
All right. So going back to our big overwhelming topic of how do they allow this to happen, I just want to summarize real quick. Part of elite culture, it's an entirely different culture, no different than Asian versus American culture. We have the rich and the poor culture. The value system up here in the elite world is really surrounded with loyalty, exclusivity, prevention of being poor, and trying to have the greatest and the most. This is one of the reasons why you see people, they'll donate just enough to tax deduct and get looked at nicely. But the reality of it is they're not actually they're not actually donating to be these because they actually empathize.
They're doing it for the money and the tax, and sometimes it's to a charity that they own second-handedly. And
it's another way to launder money, which 100%. We've seen, especially with the Trumps, that they can launder money through charities. And again, one of the problems, like what Katie was talking about, that the elite have, that they are always fighting, is public sentiment. What does the public think? What does they look? Because in that world, it's all about how you look. They don't really care what you're doing in the background. It's about how you look. And then they've taken this mindset and then invaded our media with it to where, if you think about it, the largest pedophile ring in the world outside of religion is truly the fashion industry. And so since the 70s, and pedophiles have been running the fashion industry, they have changed our body image to where we are, as women, are supposed to be skinny and no hair, no forbidden hair, and looking almost like a little tomboy, like pre-adolescent, which is
Isn't
not
that
a natural look.
Wasn't there a song about that? I Know Victoria's Secret.
It's
an old guy in Ohio, which it is.
Absolutely.
And like, I was reading Jeanette McCarthy's book about her life, and it does go into that fashion sense where she wanted to look young because it was what people needed of her. She would malnourish herself to prevent puberty because she knew if she looked too much like a woman, she wouldn't
she wouldn't get
her
the
breasts
gigs.
are too big. She would, and then she wouldn't get the gigs. And so there was that pressure. And that was like, what, 2000s when she was on TVs?
Absolutely. And it's the same with boy models too. Male models, they have the same thing. They have to be the perfect little twink per se.
It's not as like prevalent because there's not as many.
It's not as mainstreamed.
Yeah,
but
that's the word for it.
At this stage in the game, you really can't look at a beauty contest or look at fashion.
I hated the beginning because like I was watching those like toddlers and tiara, and I was like, that is just abuse. That's abuse.
You're making children look like grown women and grown women to look like children.
Yeah, it's just weird.
And so and the goal is always the fame and the fortune. So the elite, absolutely. The elite are seducing the poor to sacrifice their children in order to try and gain security. Here's an interesting phenomenon that I have seen with the wealthy also, and that is it's never enough. It's never enough. I had a friend who once said to me, if I had $1 million, I would never worry about money again. They got $1 million and their anxiety increased. Now it had to be, I can't feel secure until I have 5 million. And then it gets worse because what happens is you're building up on this, and your primal brain is still sitting there trying to find that danger place that we're always supposed to be protecting ourselves from. So the new danger becomes financial insecurity versus I got to eat.
Right. I mean, if I had $1 million, I'd go debt free and then probably give the rest to my dad. He's disabled, so.
Well, let's see. Like, sit back.
Give me $1 million. I'll show you this. I'll keep working.
Yeah.
I don't know what I do with my time without working.
And that's kind of what the thing.
Like, I didn't have a car payment. That's a big chunk of my paycheck I'd have. For fun
and we all think and we fantasize about this, but let me ask you.
And then the reality hits.
Is $1 million worth the detachment and the change of values for you? Would it be worth that? Because knowing you're now changing social circles, you're now changing.
It wouldn't be $1 million for long, I'll tell you that. There's people that need my money. I work hard so other people can have good lives.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel too. But we do see this often, and it changes. That lots of people have these great thoughts when they're poor because they can empathize. But that shifts. That shifts as you become more exclusive and elite. And to these young girls and these kids, if you think about it, especially those that grew up poor and struggled and foster families, and like the idea of never having to worry about eating again, to not worry about not being able to have food or a roof over your head, that's like, finding a genie in a bottle.
So are you trying to point to like that the victims of Epstein stuck around because the poverty on the other side, if they were to be rejected, was worse than?
No, I'm saying that was the easiest way to seduce them to get in the door in some ways.
So you drag them out of poverty with the promise of, okay, I just wanted to clarify because I was confused there.
So they're rescuing, like it's another form of seduction. Like, look, you've been like Virginia, if you've read her book, you know, she was sleeping on the streets and she had been arrested and she was in juvie and she was all these things. All of a sudden, she goes in and she's massaging and making money, and then it kind of turns into this thing where do I want to live on the street and think about where my next meal is going to come in and who I'm going to have to, what I'm going to have to do to get that? Or is the monster I know here more appealing than the monster back here? And you get trapped. You can get stuck. And you can see where a Stockholm syndrome comes in. And the more you're into it, the more wrapped up and the more scary it becomes, because now you're wrapped up in these things, and what will other people say and do, and what if I get in trouble for it, and what if he decides to kill me? Because we do know threats were regular occurrence,
right? And we have evidence of those
in the documents and through
only
testimony.
Katie was here, she could recite it.
Exactly. So it becomes this place. People say, why didn't they leave, or why did they continue? What choices do they have?
I think that's a big question that people keep asking. Like, you're being abused, just leave. And you say that even without the Epstein victims, just regular domestic abuse, it's why don't you just leave? Well, what are you going to leave to? Not everybody has a social safety net. There is no government social safety net, but not everybody has like family to rely on. Perhaps you're transgender and you were kicked out, perhaps.
Exactly. And he specialized in finding vulnerable. I mean, that's what he looked for, were the vulnerable. He wasn't recruiting out of Yale and Columbia. He was recruiting teenage girls that were going to the poor high school in town. So, I think also I want to make mention for the girls that did a little recruiting for him. Although we do know some of the girls are monsters, and actually participate. Yeah, Maxwell, right? But at the same token, I need to tell you, I want you to put yourself in the mind of a 15-year-old girl whose dad may be molesting her, whose mom doesn't give a crap about her, who's not doing great in school, who may be struggling and has no chance of a future because she's never going to be able to afford college. And you meet somebody who says, here, I'm going to give you a few $100s to go and rub this dude. And then you're there, and all of a sudden it becomes not rubbing a dude. And you're like, what am I supposed to do? And you get trapped, and we know the three responses: fight, and fawn are the three.
You're tired. I'm tired, but
but those are our three steps that we take. And the fawning would be, I'm just going to go along with it. Now you get caught up in it, and they tell you, and you're disgusted, you don't want to do the sex scene, but he says to you, I'm going to give you more money. And you don't have to touch any penis. Instead, just, toss my number to some of your girlfriends. And if they decide to come over here, I'm going to give you more money.
The recruiting fee, yeah.
So,
I feel like a lot of influencers do that in a non-sexual manner, but it's
absolutely.
Buy this product that I don't actually know anything about, but they paid me money and they'll pay me when you buy it too.
And
the
that's
money
kind
is
of
intoxicating.
It is. The money is intoxicating. And also, if you're being told you never have to do this other thing, if you do this other thing and you still reap the benefits,
pick like the lesser of two evils for personally.
And these are children who have not had a chance to establish, their brains are not fully formed. They haven't had a chance to establish their own value system, and they're very low educated.
Right.
So
and theoretically, the perfect victim.
They are the perfect victim. So all in all, the main reason why they continue to protect the harm is because, one, they accept it culturally within their culture. Two, their greatest fear is to lose the prestige and the privilege that they have. And so it serves themselves to serve the master. And then 3, we end up with these community of these monsters because the number one motivator of human behavior is a sense of belonging to the group. And this is the thing that binds them. And that's why often we hear about like these trafficking type cults, you know, like these boroughs of places where you knew this was kind of going on.
Yeah.
So with that being said, does it sound like that we want people with these types of values to be making laws and rules for us?
Absolutely. I wouldn't. I don't want a lot of people making laws and rules. No
So
idiots, no evils.
So this is something to think about and chew on as well. And this is just simply the psychology behind the trauma pieces involved with the trafficking and the protection piece. We haven't even included and discussed, and we won't till another episode, both the institutional reasons why this continues to go on, and the political reasons that this continues to go on, i.e., if people in the group are actually being extorted for state secrets per se.
Right. And we see that with our current sleuths, that they're being targeted because they're trying to disrupt their perfect order that they have going on.
Exactly.
And so we get cease and desist, and we get harassment campaigns. Their full campaigns dedicated to harassment.
Mm-hmm. And lawfare. They're going to try to attack those of us that don't have money because they assume.
Because if we don't have money, we're just going to drop it because we can't afford the lawsuit. It's not a criminal case. In a criminal case, you have the right to an attorney provided by the state. But if it's just a civil case, like a lawsuit, you're on your fucking own. Which we need to fix.
We need to fix that. That's one of my big...
I think you have the right to an attorney no matter what.
No matter what the situation, you should have a right to an attorney. I absolutely believe that 100%. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, unfortunately, there's a point where we're running low on attorneys that do that type of work. A lot of them are private practice and not public defenders.
Well, we haven't established a place for that. I don't think we haven't encouraged. No,
because it's like, do you do the right thing and have like an ungodly amount of caseload for, not as much pay as you
minimal, would do? Middle class pay versus the opportunity
you defend
to be in the league
for one session, and they're like, here's a hack $3 million.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate because that's how our legal system works. It's whoever says most money wins.
Whoever has the most money wins.
And that's not how it should work. That's not how justice works.
Now, I know that generally our format is at the end, we wrap up talking a little bit about open source intelligence that led us to find these answers. This open source intelligence just happens to be that...
A lot of psychology today, so we're just relying on your expertise, Doctor.
Yeah, well, I did manage to write up a blog to go along with this podcast that has some receipts in it that talk a little bit about elite culture. So there we go. Always check your academia to help back up your facts.
Yes, always back up your facts. If you just baseless speculation, it doesn't work. It doesn't do anybody any good.
Receipts matter.
Although we are allowed to speculate based on evidence, we just have to disclose that
it's speculation.
This is where the facts end.
Yes.
Yes. And I feel like if we disclose where the line is, it's more believable than... this is all connected. Here's my bulletin board. Look, see the string? It's real.
The 15 pounds of string.
Yeah, you had me dig into a couple websites, and they're just static sites with like 17 pages of conspiracy nonsense, and there's no network traffic on the site at all. It's not a real site.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not a site in today's day. But the only thing that does work is the link to their GoFundMe or
isn't that interesting?
Buy Me a Coffee. So, they pretend to be a sleuth, do minimal effort, probably with AI. And then they're like, fund my work. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I feel bad because people want to do that because they're tricked that they're like, oh, he's doing work.
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate there's fake sleuths out there. We do all our work. We cite all our sources, and we have professionals on the team. And
we do. We're one of the only sleuth groups that has a data scientist on it. So
I know, and I'm the cyber guy. So
and you're the cyber guy. So
I'm the cyber guy. So when people are harassed, I step in and I say, well, let's figure out where your leak points are. We don't want to get you hacked, because unfortunately we are going to be targeted. So
and have it.
I welcome the challenge. Challenge me.
Absolutely.
Hack me all day. I'll love it.
Very good.
And
all right.
Thank you very much. This has been a great episode.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, next week.